Hey, so today's video isn't really a tip or a helpful sort of video today. Today's video is more about like mental illness, because I've had a few emails from people who have said that they don't really understand what it's like to have a mental illness, and they don't really understand what a mental illness is. So it also sort of ties in with getting awareness out about mental illness as well. So I thought I'd sort of share what it sort of felt like for me with having this mental illness, and and also what I know what other people have felt like for all the emails and people I've talked to is like. So mental illness can be anything, really, anything at all. Like, it can be anxiety, it can be grief, it can be depression, self-harm. It can also be, psychosis, bipolar. There's loads of mental illnesses, but it's seen as a very, very bad thing to have, and you're judged quite a lot if you have a mental illness. And it's that's one of the things I don't like about it, is that you can't control your mental illness. Like, you can't do stuff to prevent getting it. If you've got it, you've got it, and then you're judged for having it. It adds more pressure and a lot more stress onto the person who has the illness. So for me, it's very lonely. You feel very lonely if you have a mental illness. It can be anything, but you do feel very lonely. You feel like you're the only person in the world that is having so much battle in your head, so much pain, and it feels very, very lonely, and it's really not a very nice thing to be in. I mean, you can be told that there's millions of people that have mental illnesses and conditions just like you, but it doesn't make a difference until you sort of come to terms with it. You just feel very, very alone. And especially for me, even when at school, I could be sat with my friends, but I would feel like they were millions of miles away. I could be sat right next to my friend or family, and I could feel like I wasn't even in the same place as them. I would just feel very, very isolated and very, very lonely, and it's really, really hard to sort of come to terms with the fact that other people have it. But it does help when you sort of come to terms with it, that other people have got it. But for a while, I mean, today I still feel very lonely. I mean, I know millions of people have it, and people have it worse than me, but I still feel very, very lonely because it's not talked about, and it's all up to you to make yourself better. You can't have anyone else make yourself better. It's all on you, and it's very, very hard to do it like that. Also, it's very scary, and it feels very dark and scary, and I was rather afraid, actually, because you don't understand what's happening. Especially for me, all of a sudden I was petrified to leave my bedroom. I had panic attacks the mere thought of leaving my bedroom, even to go downstairs. I suddenly didn't want to see my friends, I didn't want to see my family. All of a sudden I would burst into tears for no reason. I didn't want any contact with anybody. And normally I didn't like being alone normally. I quite liked being around people. I didn't really like my alone time. So for me, it was very, very scary to all of a sudden get into this place where I don't want contact with anybody. I just want to be in my room 24/7, see nobody, talk to nobody. And it was very scary to all of a sudden not understand why it was happening. And then it's hard to understand why it happens. Because, you know, when you see therapists or, you know, doctors, and they can say like, well, this sort of like triggered it, you know, you didn't, all this sort of triggered it, and you can be told what it is, but it's still hard to understand why it had to happen to you. Why me? What did I do that was so bad that I had to be like this? And today I still have days like this when I cry because I don't understand why it was me. Why do I have to battle every day to not self-harm, to not, you know, to not get to a low point where I want to try suicide again? Why was it me? And I think it's really, really hard and scary to be like that. And also, you're asked to talk a lot when when you have depression or grief or anxiety. They don't just want to know what's happening now. They want to know, like, if you see someone like a doctor or a therapist, they want to sort of know what you're feeling, what led up to it. And I know they're very helpful and it's worked for me, but it's hard to express what you're feeling, because for me, I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know why I was so upset, why I was angry, why just, seeing somebody made me so irritated, and I didn't know why. So it's really hard to people to constantly tell you that talking is one of the main things that will help you, is talking about your feelings, but then not knowing what your feelings are. It's really hard to sort of understand how you're meant to talk about these things. You have no idea what it is, and so that is really, really hard. Also, I've talked about this a bit before, but it's really hard trying to get better when mental illness is seen as such a bad thing to have. And it's horrible because it's no different than having a physical illness. It just from your brain. But it's just, you get judged by people, and it's, all of a sudden you're a freak if you have a mental illness, and people look at you differently. They look at you with pity. They don't know how to act around you. Like, anything they could say, you could set off in this massive big freak out. And it's really hard because you're supposed to all of a sudden concentrate and know that you're the only person that can fix yourself. And you're being constantly told that it's okay to have mental illness, it's okay to have this problem, where everyone else, people are saying that it's bad, you're getting judged by people, and it's never really talked about. In schools you learn a lot about physical illnesses, but you rarely ever hear about any mental illnesses. And I know, now lately there has been some shows on mental illness, but it's still seen as this horrible, horrible thing. And I honestly think people just need to learn about it, because if people just know that it's not the person's fault, that it's such a horrible thing to go through, and you can't pop a pill, or you don't go to a few therapy sessions and all of a sudden you're cured. It's years and years of hard work, evaluating yourself, changing the way you think, the way you look at things, and then once you're on a safe place, you're then sort of told to go out and do it by yourself. But then you have to fight the urge every day for the rest of your life to never self-harm again, to never let anything get to you that point where you want to commit suicide. You have to, like, if grief, if you lose somebody, you've then got to use all these techniques that you've learned to make sure it doesn't affect you. And it's really hard when people still don't understand what it is. So that's another reason why I sort of created this group, was to sort of get awareness out about mental illness and to let people know that it isn't a bad thing to have. Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible disease for the person going through it, and you know, even for the family and close friends of the person going through it. It's not nice to watch, you know, someone you love go through such internal pain. But people just need to know that judging someone with a mental illness, it isn't helping that person. It's making it 10 times harder for them to fight it. And they just need to know that it's just like having a physical illness. It's just like, I don't know, having a broken leg. It's just your part of your brain just decides to be broken for a while. But honestly, that's why I just really think that people need to start seeing mental illness as just an illness and not this thing that's, you know, not a thing that's so bad that people, you know, are afraid to talk about it. Like, that's why many people don't know when their friend's going through, or a family member, because you're told how horrible it is to have it, that you don't want to go to your family and friends and say, I think I have depression, you know, I self-harm. Because especially with, you know, sometimes with self-harm, I mean, my family don't understand why I self-harm. You know, when I told them, they were like, why? Why would you self-harm? Why would you do it? And unless you've done it, you don't understand why. So I just honestly think that if you see somebody with cuts on their arms or doing something that's harming themselves, you know, don't judge them. It's just the way they cope. And it won't help. You'll make it 10 times worse if you say something horrible. It's just, you know, search about illnesses and stuff. It's all out there. It's just not a bad thing to have. And I think that's what really needs to get out and sort of known publicly now, is that it's not a horrible thing to have, and that, you know, people should just treat people with respect and not judge them for having something that they can't control. So that was this week's video, and I hope that for people who wanted to know what it's like a bit for having mental illness, that it sort of answers some of your questions, and also for other people that it helps them understand a bit about it and helps get a bit more awareness out towards mental health. So thank you very much.